Good evening, everybody. Good evening. My name is Mike Morg. I am the Director of Emergency Management Agency for the City of Providence. And thank you for inviting me to take part in this, and I'm happy to be here and share with you some of the things that we do in Pima. I've been in the job now for a little over a year. After I retired from the Army after 28 years of service, I was stationed here in Rhode Island at the War College. And then an opportunity came up to go to work for the City of Providence, and I jumped on it. You know, my family was, they said, we're tired of moving around, and we've dug in, and we like Rhode Island, and we want to be from somewhere, so we picked here. So this was a good deal. So a little bit about Pima. First, anybody know about Pima? Should I show of hands? Very good. All right, we got a couple. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. My next question for you is this. Since we're going to talk a little bit about emergency preparedness and what we do at Pima and planning and everything, how many here are signed up for Code Red? By show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I've got to do a better job. So I want to take this opportunity tonight to share with you something that we're working on here in the City of Providence. It's called the Code Red Emergency Mass Notification System. So if there were a problem in the port, or when there is a problem in the port, we're going to rely on Code Red as one of the tools that we use to notify the public that there's an emergency, that there's something happening. It uses the 911 database, so if you have a phone number that's registered with 911, it will call that number when we do an all call. However, you can download the app and sign up for it and receive emergency notifications as well. It will do severe weather warnings. It will do anytime we have a hazard in the city. God forbid if we had an active shooter, we have the ability to geofence on a map and notify certain areas. So I can notify all of the city. I can notify a neighborhood. I can notify a block. I can notify a street. But it helps when you're signed up, just in the event that, because I know a lot of homes are now going wireless and they're not using the landline telephone. Who has a landline telephone still? Oh, see, the number, you know, a lot of us just use our cell phones. But if your phone is not registered in the 911 database, you wouldn't get that all call unless you signed up for the app. So I'd like everybody, if you could help me, please sign up for Code Red Emergency Notification. If we ever had to send out something, an emergency message, I promise I'm not going to make your phone ring every other day or every hour or anything like that. Although it did go off the other morning when we had a severe weather event. So please sign up for that. Okay, so a little bit about Pima. All right, Pima is charged with protecting the community through coordination of all the different agencies within the city. So basically what I do, and I only have a small staff at Pima, and we work with all the different city departments, all the different state departments, and all the different federal departments, all the public-private partners, non-governmental organizations, and anybody that has an interest at stake on what's happening in Providence. What we do is we provide the forum and the ability to bring all of those key players in response to a hazard or an emergency within the city. So we have the forum where everybody comes in, and we run the Emergency Operations Center. So basically when you have, let's say, a hurricane, we're going to stand up the EOC, we're going to bring in all the key city departments, we're going to coordinate and communicate with all of the state departments, all the federal departments, and all of our public and private business partners. That could be National Grid, it could be some of the companies down in the ports, because I know Julian showed a nice slide with the coastal surge data that shows that a good portion of the port would be inundated by a 100-year event, which is a concern, and we should all be planning and prepared. But what Pima does is bring all these players into the room and then start establishing situational awareness, looking at what's happened, what's going on the ground, what's the reality, and then beginning coordinating resources and allocating these resources appropriately to whatever the response deems. So we're building the picture of what's happening, taking everything in that we have in the city as far as assets and resources, coordinating with those external agencies outside the city, both at the state and the federal level, and bringing all of that into the city and putting it in the right place at the right time to help out and do whatever we can. So primarily what we do is we prevent, we prepare, we mitigate, we respond, and recover from. It's my job to help to get the city back on its feet after a disaster or an event or an emergency that can either be man-made or natural as quickly as possible. We want to get the city back up and running. We want to get, if the schools are closed, we want to make sure we get the schools back open and up and running. We want businesses to be open. We want the city to begin to resume its normal routine again. So that happens at the EOC, and that happens throughout all the departments and agencies that we have in the city. So specifically at the port, what we do, some of the players that we would work with at the port on any type of an emergency that would happen there, we'd work with the Army Corps of Engineers. So we tie in starting at the Fox Point Hurricane Barrier and then working our way down. We work with DEM. We work with the Local Emergency Planning Council number 2, which represents Providence. We work with the NBC. We work with the EPA, Provport. We also work with the CST, the 13th CST from the Rhode Island Army National Guard, who has a WMD focus. Oh, am I not loud enough? No?
We can hear you.
You're good.
You're good. It's just going to make it more professional.
Oh, more professional. Thank you. That's great. We also work with REMA, the Rhode Island Emergency Management Agency within the state, and all the various different organizations. And what we try to do is just, again, that interagency coordination and collaboration to get the most effective, holistic response as necessary for any event. Okay, so we are kind of dual-rolled at Pima. We do have emergency management, but we also have a homeland security role and responsibility as well. So that's why we both deal with natural and man-made disasters and some focus on terrorism. When it comes to the port, we run and take part of an annual port evacuation drill. Now, Julian laid out and showed that there are some large amounts and quantities of hazardous material that are within the port, and I think that would be expected. But we want to make sure that everybody's prepared in the event that we have to evacuate the port, that we can do that. So we work with all the businesses, all the different companies that down in the port, and also the residents that would be affected by this, and we run an annual drill each year in which we evacuate the port. So we work with everybody that's willing to take part in the exercise. The next one that's coming up is on the 25th of May, and we'll be doing it in conjunction with the Coast Guard, who will also be taking part in that drill and evacuation with us, and working to make sure that we are revisiting and testing all of the plans that we have concerning the port. We work with police, fire, and the hazmat and the communications department as we go forward in this. What we do is at the port, we also operate and sound the sirens. How many have heard the sirens down the port before? They go off every year or so, around the 25th of May and around the 1st of June sometime. Yep. So we're also responsible for running and maintaining those sirens. There are 4 sirens that are currently in the port right now. And those can be set off from 5 different locations. They can be set off at the port, they can be set off at my facility on Charles Street, and we also have mobile capabilities that the fire department and the communications department can activate those sirens if they're necessary. We also have a voice portion of the sirens as well, and we're working on the voice portion because during the last year's test, the voice was kind of garbled. Did anybody experience that? You couldn't tell what it was saying? Right? So we're trying to work the software companies to get that so it comes out more enunciated, more clear, and that message. But those speakers, those sirens do have 125 decibel capability and are good for coverage of around 5,400 feet. But we have gotten reports that they've heard those sirens down in Westerly. So it all just depends on which way the wind's blowing and how far those sound waves travel. But we do operate that as well. Tied into that now is Code Red. So we did talk about Code Red already, and again, please sign up for Code Red. If we were to send a message out and ask you to shelter in place or to evacuate, Code Red would be one of the primary means that we're going to notify you and let you know that there's something going on in the port. One of our key responsibilities that Pima does when it comes to the port is planning. So part of our threat hazard identification and risk assessment, we call that THIRA. What we do is we look at all the potential threats that potentially we might see in the port. If it's ammonium leaks with Univar, if it's the coal pile, if it's the scrap metal, whatever those, we try to examine and look at all the potential risks and look at all the different scenarios, and then we develop a plan how to deal with it, how to leverage all of these agencies that I've already talked about to help resolve that. Remember, our scope is prevent. So if we can do something to prevent it in advance, that's what we're going to do. We're going to work to prevent. We're going to mitigate. We're going to respond to and then recover from. So that's part of our tasking that we take on hand with at Pima. Some of the plans that we work on that are related specifically to the port, I'll give you a listing here real quick. The hazardous materials mitigation plan, the emergency operations procedure for the city, the public siren warning system, hazmat plans, port evacuation plans, marine operations plan, rail emergency action plans. So we look at every aspect from either 95, the rail yards, to the tanks, to the coastal surge, combining that with potentially hurricanes, fire, conflagration, or any type of disaster, be it natural or man-made, and we try to account for that in our planning efforts. Do I have a plan for everything? No. I can probably sit here today with all confidence say I do not have a plan for a meteor strike on the port. Okay? But that doesn't mean the plans that I have right now today wouldn't help us and become a point of departure to dealing with, let's say, a meteor strike, which potentially could happen. You can't rule it out. But what we have is the fire plan, we have the hazardous mitigation plan, the emergency operations plan, and those would become the plans that we would pull off the shelf and use to deal with and assess and react to any type of emergency that we have in the port. So I don't have a plan for everything, but I have a plan for almost every realistic potential possibility that we see that's based on our thyroid and how we see the world and what potentially the threats we face. We do have plans for terrorism, and recently we just took part in a drill where we did a complex coordinated attack, a Paris-style, Mumbai-style attack, working with both police and fire, and how we would react, and we did involve the port in some of that, just to take a look at that and see how might cities, first responders would react to those types of situations. So what I would tell you is we're always planning. We're looking at every event. We have a policy where we review all of our plans on a 5-year rotating basis and upgrade and go back and look at the potential threats. Is that still a valid threat or concern that we have? And what, if it is, then we adjust the plan and begin. Sometimes companies, individuals, key personalities have moved out. We replace that, update that, and make sure those are all up to date. So in the event that we do have an emergency in the port, we're ready to go. And we can address that. Essentially, I want to assure you that Pima stands ready to react, to respond, and carry out any of our duties that we have in the event of any emergency. And we're ready to support this community because we understand that the port's an important place to the city and to the residents. And we want to make sure and reassure you that we're doing everything that we possibly can to make this a safe city. And so that's all I have, subject to your questions. Yes, ma'am.
So if something horrific happens at the port, we all know how densely populated the area is,
Yep.
as well as the hospitals, social service
Yep.
agencies. Who is it that would make the call to actually evacuate people? Because clearly the code red thing, a lot of people are not going to have access to for any number of reasons. So who would make that call? I understand it's a collective thing, but really I'm just trying to imagine the worst possible scenario. I'm thinking, okay, if the code red thing goes in and there's some sort of an assumption, how do you determine how many people you think have access to it?
Right.
And meanwhile, the port is blown to smithereens. Who's going to evacuate all these people out here? What happens to Rhode Island Hospital? What happens to all the residents all the way around here? And who makes that call?
Okay, so let me answer the first part. Who makes the call? If you get a code red notification that says evacuate, the decision has already been made to evacuate, and you should heed that evacuation.
I'm talking about people who have not either downloaded or have
Right.
not.
So it's not the only means by which we're going to do notification. So let's talk about mass notification. So the siren system is going to be one of the things that you're going to see. And when you hear the siren, you should immediately, unless it's one of our drills, and we do announce in the media in advance when we're going to do our drills, and we do public notification, and we put it out on our Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter. We're also active in social media as well at Pima 591. But we'll put that out in multiple ways. At the EOC on Charles Street, where my office is, we have a media office where we would immediately contact all the media and bring them in, both radio, print, and television, and begin an emergency broadcast. We also we work with the Rhode Island Broadcasters Association for emergency notification on the EAS. So we work with them and we spread that message there. Further, we work with public safety, both fire and police, if there was an event that would cause an evacuation, that they would go through on loudspeaker and if had to, door to door, and knock and let people know to evacuate if that was the thing. So let's get back how that decision is made. So that's the public notification part of it, in which I feel very comfortable. If we had to do a public notification, we could do that. If it was a fire in the port and it caused us to do an evacuation, that's a very serious thing, and we would get that notified immediately. So now Julian brought up something great. He talked about, Univar, and one of the ones I'm concerned about is ammonium, and when ammonium leaks, and it gets around chlorine, you get ammonium chloride, which is another potential problem, which becomes a very toxic combination. It also depends on which way the wind blows, right? So 14 miles, it could affect different parts. It could go east, west, north, south. It's going to depend on which way the wind. So we're going to work with the hazmat team and develop that downwind hazard and determine which way the wind's blowing. I have a weatherman on staff that we contract with, and I'm going to call him up and I'm going to ask him which way the wind's blowing and which way is it going to sustain and how is it going to change anytime soon. So we're going to be able to determine where that hazard is going to be and where we have to evacuate, where we would have to shelter in place, where we would put roadblocks in and stop traffic to keep people out of the hazard, and then monitor the hazard. We have different ways and systems to do that as well. But how do we make that decision? So, in an extremist case, by city ordinance, I have the power to do that. Okay, that I could be the single decision maker. Normally that's going to be the mayor. I'll tell you, I'm going to be on the phone if something happens and immediately talking to the mayor and the commissioner of public safety and bring in both police and fire and telling them, all right, gentlemen, this has just happened in the Port of Providence. We've got an emergency. This is my recommendation that we need to make an immediate evacuation in this particular area, if that's required, or a shelter-in-place call, and send that message out. And then we will work extremely fast to get that message out right away. If there's an event and the sirens go off, pick up your cell phone, call 311 at Providence, and they will give you information. You can call us, get on our Twitter feed, however it is you want to, whatever way. If I don't have a way to contact you, I'll figure out a way to get a hold of you, make sure you get that message. So did that answer the question? So I talked about the notification.
Well, it certainly answered part of it, but it also raises other questions, like, do people know where to go?
Yes.
If people around the corner here, or right off Numbers Avenue, hear a siren or something, do they know where to go?
Yeah, that's a great question. And here's what I would tell you. In the annual drill that we do every year for the port evacuation, right? And we work with businesses and the residents, and we tell them, you have a assigned rally point. There are different rally points designated within the port evacuation plan, and we work with with RIPTA to provide bus transportation and get people out of those areas as well. But here's what it's going to say. It's going to depend. It kind of depends on what the emergency is. If the wind is blowing that hazard over a potential rally point. So once we assess what the hazard is doing and where the potential threats are, we wouldn't want to send people to a rally point that we know that's in the contamination zone. So we would designate areas and work with police and fire on the ground, at the street, at the site, making sure that the word got out effectively and as fast as possible to save lives and property.
Okay, we're going to save questions for the end, please, only because of time. But thank you.
I'll be here and I'll answer all the questions that we have.
But thank you.